Welcome to Sports Guy Talking. I am Dustin Tran, your host, as I am here today to talk about the Packers potentially making a run for the NFL playoffs. The Packers are just currently half a game back from the 7th seed, which is currently held by the Washington Commanders. However, if the Commanders lose just one more game and the Packers win all the remaining games, then the Packers will get in for the final spot of the NFC playoffs. All right, so they're going to be in if they can do those things. Before I say anything else, though, I want to present you guys with the topic question. So here it is. Will the Packers get the number 7 seed in the NFC? So you look at the pathway that's currently being there right now for the Green Bay Packers, and you look at the current NFC standings for them, and I have to say that the Green Bay Packers, they have a real shot at this thing, man. All right, so you look at the NFC wildcard standings, you look at the New York Giants, they're currently the number 6 seed. They're at 8-6-1. I think they're probably going to get into the playoffs, though, because they'll probably beat the Jeff Saturday-led Colts team next Sunday. I mean, if they lose, that would be certainly surprising, but they'll probably win that one. Even though the Giants have been struggling recently, just because the Colts, they're not a good football team whatsoever. And then you got the number 7 seed, the Washington Commanders at 7-7-1. We'll talk about them a bit later, but the Commanders right now, they haven't won a game in December. And typically when teams don't win a game in December, that typically spells trouble for a ball club. All right, and then you look at the Seattle Seahawks, they're at 7-8. Again, they haven't won a game in a good while. They've lost 5 out of their last 6 games. They're an ice-cold team. Yeah, Geno Smith's had a fantastic season, but he hasn't necessarily been able to elevate the Seahawks to wins in recent games. And then you got the Detroit Lions at 7-8. They were 6-1 in a 7-game stretch, but they got blown out to my Panthers last Saturday as they basically got ran over all over the lot. So Detroit Lions, they look like they're going to cool off a bit. And then you got the Packers, who are currently on a 3-game winning streak right now that has brought them to 7-8, and they have no more road games to play for the rest of the regular season. All right, so when you look at the Giants' schedule, because the pathway for the Packers to make the playoffs is that either the Washington Commanders have got to lose one of their 2 final remaining games while the Packers win out, or that the New York Giants lose out on the remaining games while the Green Bay Packers win out on their remaining games. So you look at the Giants' schedule, they play against the Colts at home. They're probably going to win that one. That's probably going to send the Giants to the playoffs. And then they play Week 18 at the Eagles. Who knows? Maybe the Eagles will still have something to play for in Week 18, although that's certainly unlikely. Look at the Philadelphia Eagles. If they just beat the Saints this upcoming Sunday, which for my Panthers, I need that to happen, then they're probably going to be resting starters, and they're probably going to be playing the B squad Eagles team. But who knows? Maybe that B squad Eagles team is good enough to beat the Giants. The Eagles did smoke the Giants the first time that they did play, and that was at the Giants. Now they're going to be doing it at Philly. But you know what? The Giants, as long as they take care of business against the Colts, they're going to get in. So I'm going to talk as if the New York Giants are going to be in the NFL playoffs. So that means that's going to leave them one more spot remaining. So Washington Commanders, Seattle Seahawks, Detroit Lions, Green Bay Packers, they're all going to be battling for that spot. Now, the thing is, Green Bay Packers, they're currently losing the 3-way tiebreaker between the Lions and the Seahawks. But that's not really much of a concern for them right now, because the Green Bay Packers, they're going to end up with a better conference record than the Seattle Seahawks if they are to win out. And as for the Detroit Lions, that will be taken care of in that Week 18 matchup as long as they win their Week 17 matchup, because the Packers, they can beat the Lions head-to-head, which means that would put Green Bay at 9-8, Detroit at 8-9, or whatever the record's going to be. So that means that the Packers, they're going to ultimately have the tiebreaker over those guys. So even though they're losing the 3-way tiebreaker right now, it's not really something that they need to be too concerned about per se. All right, so when you look at it from that perspective, you just have to like the chances that the Green Bay Packers have. Okay, because you look at what the Green Bay Packers are going up against. They're going up against the Vikings at home, and then they go up against the Lions at home. Now, what are the key things? Yes, they are divisional opponents, but the Minnesota Vikings, yes, they're 12-3, but 11 of those wins are one possession score victories. So that means that the Minnesota Vikings are not necessarily dominating these games, and when they lose games, they get killed pretty badly. And here's the thing with the Minnesota Vikings as well. The Minnesota Vikings are a dome football team. Dome football teams rarely win in outside conditions. Not saying it can't be done, but it's very hard to do so. And it's a divisional game. We know that the Packers are going to be a very hungry football team. So I think the Green Bay Packers, they could certainly force a win against the Minnesota Vikings, because dome teams, they just don't play well outside. And Kirk Cousins is not really a quarterback that plays well in cold weather. And then you look at Week 18, the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions, they've been good recently, although they did lose to my Panthers. But can you really trust the Detroit Lions? The Detroit Lions, they've always been a losing franchise, and I don't think much of that is going to change. particularly when a dome team has to play outside in Lambeau. A dome team that's playing in Lambeau in January, they're not beating the Green Bay Packers as far as they're concerned. And Jared Goff, he is definitely not a cold weather quarterback. So when you look at it from that perspective, the Green Bay Packers, they're probably going to take care of business and win all the rest of their games. So when I look at the Green Bay Packers schedule, I think that they can definitely win both of those games. I know that Aaron Rodgers and the offense, they're struggling right now, but I think they're going to get it together. Christian Watson has come on the last few games. The defense has come along nicely. The defense is making plays. They forced 3 interceptions from the Dolphins yesterday, so congratulations to their defense. I think the defense is going to step it up. I think Christian Watson is going to make enough plays on the offensive side of the ball. I think the running game of Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon's going to come alive, and I think the Green Bay Packers are going to end up with a 9-8 record, which really means that what the Seahawks and the Lions do, it really doesn't matter, although I will throw this out of the way that the Lions will probably beat the Bears. The Bears are a pretty bad football team, and they're going to lose to the Packers, so the Lions, they're going to be an 8-9 type of football team. That means they're not going to make the playoffs, and then you look at the Seahawks, they go up against the Jets. That's a 50-50 game. I got to see if Mike White's ready to go for the Jets. If he's ready to go, I think the Jets win. If he's not ready to go, I think the Seahawks will probably win, although both of those teams are struggling right now. They are doing anything they can to get a win right now. And then they play the Rams week 18. I mean, that's a division opponent. I mean, that could go either way. I mean, I do think that the Seahawks, they probably could beat the Rams in week 18. But with the way how the Rams are looking with Baker Mayfield, our quarterback, Baker Mayfield has not been too bad for the Rams. So maybe the Rams could force an upset on them, but you never know. But the point is, the Green Bay Packers, if they win out, it doesn't matter what Seattle is going to do. It doesn't matter what the Detroit Lions are going to do. And the New York Giants, they're probably going to win one more game, which brings me up to my final point. I want to talk about the Washington Commanders because that's the team that the Green Bay Packers probably need help from. That's probably the most likely place where help is going to come from. You look at the Washington Commanders, all the remaining games are at home. They play against the Cleveland Browns and they play against the play against the Cowboys. All right. So you look at them going up against the Cleveland Browns. I mean, the Browns, they're not a good football team. They're 6-9. They're in disarray. Their offense does not look good with Deshaun Watson at quarterback. Now, look, the Washington Commanders, from what I'm hearing, looks like they're going to make a quarterback change from Taylor Heineke to Carson Wentz. I mean, I'm honestly not against it, but I'm not for it either. Remember, Carson Wentz is not necessarily clutch. He doesn't know how to close games in terms of getting his team to the playoffs. If you guys recall last year, Carson Wentz, he choked last year with the winning in situation against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Actually, let me take a step further than that because Carson Wentz, he just needed to win one of the 2 final remaining games last year for the Indianapolis Colts. And that Colts team was probably better than this year's version of the Washington Commanders. And what happened? Carson Wentz fell flat on his face. He didn't come through. So when you look at it from that perspective, if they play Carson Wentz, there's no reason to think that the Commanders are going to win out in terms of winning out the remaining games that they have on their schedule. I mean, Carson Wentz is not going to go 2-0. I don't see that happening. He's only won 2 games all year when he was in the starting lineup. I don't see him all of a sudden going on a little hot run. Carson Wentz doesn't have that it factor. Now, I'm not saying that they should or shouldn't go to Carson Wentz. I mean, Taylor Heineke, I like the guy, but he hasn't necessarily been playing good for them in recent memory. And to be honest with you, Taylor Heineke is kind of more of a backup than a full-time NFL starting quarterback. Heineke just doesn't have an NFL arm whatsoever to be able to pull off certain throws, and he has been winning lately. I don't mind him going back to Carson Wentz, but be aware that if the Commanders go back to Carson Wentz, the rest of the team, they might not play as good as they've been with Heineke because Wentz doesn't have certain leadership skills, and we know that Carson Wentz, he's not clutch when it comes to winning in situations. So who's to say that Carson Wentz is going to be able to beat the Browns and the Cowboys? I mean, I do think that he will beat the Browns. The Browns are not a good football team. But what about the Cowboys, with or without Dak Prescott? I mean, look, if the Cowboys rest stars, I'm still convinced that the Cowboys are going to beat them because the Cowboys have generally had the Commanders' number when it comes to recent seasons. So when you look at it from that perspective, I mean, I truly believe that the Green Bay Packers are going to be able to get the final wild card spot because I think they can take care of the games that they're taking care of. Okay, they're currently on a hot streak going on. The defense is playing well. The run game is showing up. Aaron Rodgers. He's going to do what he do in big games. And the Washington Commanders, I think they're going to do what they do, which is be right on schedule to choke when it matters most. They're going to lose to the Dallas Cowboys. The Green Bay Packers are going to win out, which means that the Green Bay Packers are going to end up making the NFL playoffs, which is really a great story for Aaron Rodgers, considering the fact that he started out the year 4-8, and to be able to get his team on a 5-game winning streak potentially to end the year, make the playoffs as the 7th seed, man, that's certainly going to be exciting to watch. and he's going to have a chance to go up against either the 49ers or the Vikings. So that's going to be certainly an interesting wild card game to be seen. So I'm just really excited about those prospects. I certainly think that Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, they have a chance to make the NFL playoffs, and not only have a chance, I think they're going to actually pull it off. I know their odds aren't great right now, but I think they're going to win out, and I think the Commanders lose one game. If that happens, they're making the playoffs. That's why I'm declaring it's going to happen. So that is why the Green Bay Packers will end up stealing the number 7 seed in the NFC in order to make the NFL playoffs this season. Remember, go ahead and subscribe to Sports Guy Talking. Like the video, and please comment down below. If you guys do that, I may shout you guys out in my Instagram story every Monday. That'll be for the @DustinTran Instagram account. Make sure to follow me on Instagram @DustinTran and @SportsGuyTalking. Also, go follow me on Twitter @DustinTran. Again, go ahead and do those things that I just told you guys to go do. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the content that was just produced. Peace out. I hope you enjoyed that video. Want more Sports Guy Talking, the home of great sports content? Make sure you click that subscribe button to get the latest from Sports Guy Talking. Go ahead and like the video, comment down below, check the description box on the video in order to follow my Instagram and Twitter. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from the YouTube channel, Sports Guy Talking.